PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Honey?
Yeah.
My box is done. You want to come look at it?
I beg your pardon?
My exploitation box for this week's show.
Yes, I can see that because it says TC's exploitation box on the side in spray paint.
And look at what's inside of it.
Ooh.
Film reels of all kinds of movies that nobody should be seeing if they're anything to sneeze at, unless you're one of those people that really like this kind of stuff.
Honey?
What?
These are all coated with a thin layer of slime.
No, not all of them. Some of them are okay. But I've got gloves for the ones that don't.
Ooh, latex.
Exploitation films are the subject this week. Plus, we have a couple of deja vu reviews concerning exploitation films. Mm-hmm. And our drive-in salute is back, plus a lot more, and it's all happening right here, right now. I'm T.C. Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
Like sands through the hourglass.
This is Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer, and this week, it's the movies they don't want you to see.
Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our Drive-In Theater.
Cinema. Drive-in summer. Kirkham and Kim Brown. Subject Cinema Drive-In Summer.
Welcome to another edition of Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer. I'm T.C. Kirkham.
Hi, I'm Kim Brown.
Subject Cinema number 576, day and date July 30th, 2017. We hope everybody's having a great drive-in summer.
Yeah.
And patronizing all the local drive-ins that are available in your area. Some of them you may have to drive a ways to get to. But, that's a fun outing for families.
It's worth it.
I know Eric and Valerie did it a few weeks ago over at Cavebabble. Take a look at their show at Cavebabble.com. Mm-hmm. Exploitation films this week. This is going to be interesting because there was a time when the drive-ins were really hard on their luck, and in the late 60s and early 70s, some of them turned to showing as close to porn as they could get without going all the way. And, of course, there's also other types of exploitation films that became big box office for them, and regular theaters, too.
That's true.
And we're going to talk about all of that this week. How was your week this week?
My week was all right, not too bad. Had to go to the doctors. Don't panic. I
have that tomorrow.
Yeah, but for a change, I actually went to the doctors and stuff actually went okay, because usually when I go to the doctors, if I have to give blood...
it's like watching. She becomes the human
talk about an
pincushion.
exploitation film.
Yeah, actually, it could be. It could be the next Herschel Gordon Lewis film.
Actually, it would be the anti-Herschel Gordon Lewis film,
because
there is no blood whatsoever. I am a vampire's worst nightmare.
There has actually been a point in one time when she was in there where they took what? They had to send you somewhere else.
Yes.
To be able to find a vein for you.
Yes. I am a vampire's worst nightmare. I've always been afraid that if I got caught by a vampire, they'd be shaking me. They'd flip me over and shake me up and down like a ketchup bottle and be slapping my feet, going, "Come on, I know it's in there." But this time they actually got the one vein and managed to get it out at one shot, so that's nice.
Yeah.
For once I didn't.
And it was just a regular checkup. You haven't had one
Yeah.
for a while, and I got the end of my test stuff tomorrow, and so we'll see what happens.
And other than that, it was a pretty uneventful week. It's just doing the whole grown up thing of going to work and all that stuff.
Yep.
At least the weather's been kind of the that's the thing about New England weather. New England summers can be unbearable.
This last week was nice temperature wise, but it was rainy part of the time, and it was just obnoxious the other part of the time.
I'm sorry, I prefer it raining when it's raining like in it's cool air. When it's raining, not like when it's hot and it's raining.
Yeah.
And that's so nasty.
Yep.
But thankfully we didn't have that. What about you?
Oh, it sucked. My boss was on vacation,
Yeah.
so everybody had to drop their crap on me this week. So she'll be back tomorrow. Yay. As we're recording this, and I won't be there because I got a doctor's appointment.
So anyway, exploitation films. Now, we need to talk about, obviously, the first thing we should talk about when talking about exploitation films,
Well,
which...
we haven't even gotten into the segment yet. Let's get into the segment about exploitation films.
Right.
Subject Cinema Microfocus. All right, now, have at it.
Sorry. Okay.
You got all excited.
Yep. Obviously, we should mention what an exploitation film is. An exploitation film is a genre of film that is obviously from the title of what it is. You kind of get the gist of what's involved. An exploitation film is looking at a subject and focusing on a subject in a skewered way. Focusing on it usually in a way that's highlighting the dark side, the sleazy side, the unpleasant side, the overly exaggerated side of whatever the subject happens to be. Now, that's not always the case, but in a lot of cases it is, and we'll get into the differences as we go along. As TC mentioned, when drive-ins started kind of, going on the downside of things and people weren't going to the drive-ins as often, they weren't getting the first-run films and things like that. They had to show what they could show. And sometimes the things they showed were films that were downright sleazy. During our look at drive-ins and stuff, according to some of the research we've done, some drive-ins did actually show porn.
Quite a few of them, unfortunately, and it's a sad thing that they had to do that.
I still don't understand that, but okay. But porn does not actually, I'm not sure, some people might argue that pornography is a form of exploitation, depending on your point of view about things. But we're not going to get into that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Now, people think when you talk about an exploitation film, people tend to automatically assume, oh, you're talking about some kind of 50s and 60s kind of stuff. That's not exactly accurate. Exploitation films were around even before that. I would say that, exploitation films you can go all the way back to films from the 30s and the 40s when you're looking at a whole idea of an exploitation film as the idea of a film that's exaggerating the negative of certain things. For example, films like Reefer Madness, Sex Madness, films like that. These are films that are basically taking the whole idea of drugs and being like, if you toke one joint, your whole life is going to go to hell in a handbasket,
Yeah.
And if you've
never seen Reefer Madness, you should. It's so funny.
If you've never seen Reefer Madness, it's going to make you want to smoke the largest bong you can find. I mean, I don't smoke weed, and I wanted to smoke weed after this movie.
There's an excellent misdeed version by Mike Nelson from one of the early projects.
It makes you want to smoke weed just to be like, F you, movie. Because it's so truly ridiculous. And it also, that falls in the line with films like She Should Have Said No, which is the whole idea of, the sex madness thing and all that stuff like that, where basically you had these films that made it very obvious that their opinion was that if you were a woman who, gasp, clutch pearls, enjoyed sex, or had sex outside of, marriage, you were a loose woman and you were a horrible person and you were, fated to die and blah, 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 blah.
Let me jump in here for a second. And for those of you who've never seen it, there was a movie in 1981 or 82, I think it came out in 81, called First Monday in October. It's the story of the first Supreme Court Justice, woman Supreme Court Justice, with Jill Clayburgh and Walter Matthau.
Which actually came out before there was a Supreme Court Justice.
Well, they had to release it faster than they planned because Reagan announced Sandra Day O'Connor. Mm-hmm. But it was, at the central point of this film is the battle going on between the sovereign state of Nebraska and somebody over a film called The Naked Nymphomaniac. Do you remember the segments of that they showed in the movie? That was clear border porn, like vivid porn. And yet this is the kind of exploitation, because it's supposedly a work of art, a documentary, which it really wasn't. It was, actors and stuff. But this is the kind of thing I think of when I think of exploitation films. Mm-hmm. When I think of stuff like we've seen tons of trailers for movies, most of which are available from Something Weird Video now. Movies like Teenage Mother. And what was the thing we watched with Anthony Franciosa? And about the call girl went to New York and ended up becoming a call girl.
Girl in Gold Boots?
No.
That was Misty, though.
No, that was Misty. This was one
that
Something
one.
Weird
I
ones.
forgot the name of it, yeah.
And I'm like, he was a pretty big, up-and-coming star.
Girl in Gold Boots would also qualify as an exploitation film, I think, other than just qualifying as crap.
Crap, yeah.
But like I said, the whole idea of an exploitation film, people think of a certain era, and I'm like, no, you have to go back further for something like that. Another great.
Well, they still make exploitation.
Oh, they
films.
definitely do make exploitation films. Now the thing is, some people get confused between the idea of what is an exploitation film and what is a cult film. Now, a cult film, and this
it can be both.
It can be both. It can definitely be both, but it doesn't have to be both.
Most of Russ Meyer's stuff is both.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Russ Meyer films definitely fall under exploitation because, you're focusing basically on women.
You're basically focusing on TNA and how to best show it on the big screen.
More of the T than the A,
True,
really.
Yeah.
But a lot of those films definitely fall into the cult category because they have people that watch them over and over and over and over again.
For some ungodly reason. It's
the T part. We just mentioned it. It's that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Those two whole things. Anyway. Moving on. But
it's all the badonkadonk going on.
That's somebody's butt. I keep telling you.
Oh, okay, right.
Oh,
sorry.
Man. But a cult film. Now, a good example to me of a cult film, obviously, is a film like Night of the Living Dead, which we talked about last week.
Yet that list says as an exploitation film, is it?
I wouldn't consider it an exploitation
film. No, I wouldn't either, and
no.
I don't know why they would consider that an exploitation film. They're not exploiting anything currently except horror. Horror genre does not come across as exploitation to me unless it's a particular category. Dead teenager category, or slasher films.
I don't really know if I'd consider slasher. Some people consider slasher films exploitation films. I'm not sure I go along with that. If you were going to ask me what I consider to be an exploitation film in the horror genre, I would consider torture porn exploitation films.
Okay, so that's a more recent genre.
Stuff that
Saw, Hostel, those, yeah.
Stuff that goes out of its way to be disgusting and to get your face right in it, that's torture porn. That's torture porn and that's exploitation.
Wouldn't Herschel Gordon Lewis's stuff be exploitation? I think it is.
Yeah, I would actually. Yeah, I would call his stuff exploitation because you're really getting in people's face. You're going out of your way to show stuff that is just flat out nasty. Yeah. I mean, the Brits had a term. I don't know if it's still used by people in the United Kingdom. If it is, let me know. They called them video nasties back in the day when they actually had videotapes to rent and things like that.
Right.
And those were films that you couldn't be of a certain age. They wouldn't let you rent them and stuff like that. Never mind.
Well, it's just like what I was talking about with First Monday in October. It brings to mind another scene from that film where Jill Clayburgh is being the prosecutor type, and Walter Matthau is pretending to be the producer of this naked nymphomaniac, and she says to him, "This movie of yours, it's an exploitation film, correct?" And he's like, "Yes, and you're keeping me from exploiting it." Which I love that line, and I'm like, that's so perfect for all of these movies. If you have rules about stuff like this, as we did in the early days, you have to really say that exploitation films were out there all these times.
Right.
But they didn't explode until the Hays Code fell in 1966. Really. That's when they exploded. They started being released as non-rated films, and the Hays Film Board weren't even submitted, and that's why they got into these underground films. But they were, at that time, they weren't porn, they were acted films that were about lurid subjects.
Right. Another thing that definitely makes something an exploitation film is how it's marketed. I think that has a big thing to do with what makes something an exploitation film. If the poster is something especially lurid, if the trailer has lines in it like, if you're of a sensitive nature, don't go see, blah, blah, blah.
If you're of a sensitive nature, don't look in the basement!
Yeah, that kind of stuff,
No, we talked about those last week. Anyway.
Like you mentioned, like a movie like Teenage Mother. I think it was that one, or there was another one like that where they're talking about, that you will see the actual birth of a baby and all this stuff like that. And it was just that whole idea of making people think that they were getting to see something forbidden. Because people, as a general rule, not everybody, but people have always been attracted to the seamier side of things. People want to know what goes on behind closed doors. Not everybody. Some people are just happy being in their own little circle, and and that's fine.
Okay.
That's your deal.
Let's talk about one. Just bringing up some of the different genres of exploitation films. One of the genres that I think is interesting that it's actually was the exploitation film disguised as educational documentary.
Okay.
These were, and they were especially popular in the 1960s, and they became known as Mondo films. Now, you've seen some of these.
Yeah.
And the trailers for some of these.
Right.
One of them, Mondo Cane, or Mondo Cane, 1960s, actually was a box office hit that produced a hit record called More, which was recorded by Andy Williams, Bobby Darin, all these people at the time, and it meant Mondo Cane translated to A Dog's World. So that suddenly, when that took off, everybody started splicing these films together and slapped the word Mondo on the front of their movie, and boom, you have a whole genre. You had Mondo Bizarro, Mondo Mod, Mondo Inflame, Mondo Daytona. Everything was Mondo this and Mondo that. And the strange thing about them is most of them just really aren't very good.
No, they're not. There are a lot of footage of, their footage of religious rituals from around the world. Their footage of adult clubs from around the world. There is footage in these films that is upsetting. There is footage,
and many of them really would fall into found footage films because a lot of them were produced from scripts.
I don't know if they... Would you say they're found footage or more cinema verite? I don't...
Mondo... yeah, okay, that's fine, but it's mock cinema verite because a lot of the footage was staged.
Okay.
Faces of Death, when it came out in 1980.
Which is basically what came after the Mondo film.
Yeah, it was a modern-day Mondo film.
Yeah, definitely.
Was supposedly showing real deaths, like in an electric chair and all this stuff. Most of them were staged, and when that came out, people freaked out. It's you can't promote this as real when it's not real. And a lot of the Mondo stuff in the 60s was real, but just as much of it wasn't. It was staged.
Right. Well, the other thing is when the Faces of Death videos came out, which my sister rented one of those.
And watched it for 5 minutes and ran screaming from the room.
She was just like, I can't watch this. This is gross. I'm like, really?
What did you expect, dear?
I was just... I was like, I give her 15 minutes before she, leaves, and then she didn't even make it that long. And I remember coming in the room and turning the TV off, turning the video out, and what they were showing at the time was footage of a suicide. Mm. The aftermath of a suicide. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking to myself, this isn't shocking. This is sad. You know,
Yeah.
this is somebody's life that they felt like they were so overwhelmed that they had to end it all, and you're using it for some kind of like, ooh, look how scintillating we can be. You know, that's pathetic. That's horrible. But anyway, going on. There, like we mentioned, I mean, there's tons of different forms of exploitation and tons of different, you know, blank exploitation. Obviously, one of the ones that people talk about a lot, you know, that came out mostly in the 60s and 70s was the black exploitation phenomenon. You know, but which a lot of people, you know, this is going to sound really bad. Some people might assume that that's a term that a white person came up with, but it wasn't. It was actually come up with by an African-American person. You know, these are films that were made by African-Americans with African-American actors for the African-American audience. They were usually set in urban settings, and it was usually, you know, you had the...
Not all of them were done by African-American filmmakers.
No.
But they were done. They always starred black actors and had black themes, urban themes to
yes.
them. So, right. Just wanted to clarify.
Right. I'm sorry. I obviously, one of the first ones that was, you know, really caught people's attention was Sweetback's Badass Song, directed by Melvin Van Peebles.
Yeah, that was actually one of Roger Ebert's guilty pleasures. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that was a
and
hit.
when that found an audience with the African American, you know, audiences, they took that and ran with it. You had films like Shaft and, you know, Cleopatra Jones and Coffee, and
all of which still run once a month at the midnight movies at the Coolidge Corner in Brookline.
You know,
they've had Coffee at least 4 times in the last year.
Well, yeah, you know, obviously that, you know, I'm not trying to be like, you know, a jerk about this, but it's kind of obvious why they would have that.
Yes, it is.
There are 2 words in there that make it very obvious why they would have that. Pam Grier, because Pam Grier is...
Was she in Coffee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pam Grier, who is an amazing actress, a beautiful lady, and just someone that I can watch do anything because she's just amazing and cool. The strange thing was, and I'm not knocking any of the blaxploitation films because they all obviously reached out and hit a nerve with people, and that's obviously what you want your movie to do.
And some of them are damn good.
Some of them
Shaft
are.
is great. Superfly is fantastic.
Yeah. When you get a movie like Blackula, which I actually watched, I actually was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch this movie. You know what? That movie's actually really interesting. It's really, really interesting. The whole idea of this African prince and his wife who are turned by Count Dracula, and he's brought back to consciousness in the 70s as a black vampire.
I can't take that movie for one reason.
What?
William Marshall. I have no problem with him as an actor, but whenever I'm watching him, I always see him as Dr. Daystrom from Star Trek.
Yes.
The crazy guy that ended up going nuts when his computer malfunctioned.
Yes.
It's called The Ultimate Computer, the episode.
Yes.
And I could never get past that.
William Marshall being the star of Blackula and the fact that you are a nerd.
I am a nerd, but I can't help it.
I love you, but you're a nerd. There's other films, obviously, that, you know, we talk about other forms of exploitation. You know, there's sexploitation films, which are you don't have to be a Mensa member to figure out what we're talking about there.
I was unaware of Connexploitation, which are Canadian films that have exploitative themes. I'm
well. I mean, if you can go that you can stick exploitation on anything.
Yeah.
There's Mexploitation, which are Mexican films. A lot of the Lucha Libre stuff, a lot of the El Santo stuff is considered Mexploitation, which I'm kind of like, I don't know if I go along with that because those were made for a Mexican audience, and El Santo was considered, you know, this paragon of Mexican cinema, you know, but if some people consider that exploitation, then fine. I think it's more because a lot of those films do have women in, you know, like something like Santo versus the Vampire Women, which is, you know, all these vampire brides in like flowing gowns with, you know.
What do you feel about the Giallo films? Are they exploitation films?
Giallo films definitely fall under the exploitation category.
Because a lot of them were very well received by critics.
Well, just because something's an exploitation film doesn't automatically make it bad.
Well, no, but I'm saying
it makes it weird. It doesn't make it bad.
We might laugh at when we see the trailer for the bird with the crystal plumage, which we have, but it's actually considered a really good film by most critics.
Yeah, it is. It's
despite the fact that isn't Marjo Gortner one of the stars of that film? I'm like,
sure.
Okay. Anyway,
my big problem with the Giallo films, which are mostly Italian, actually all Italian.
They're all Italian. Yeah.
My problem with the Giallo films is half the time I'm going, what the hell is going on? You know, with the Giallo films, a lot of times they do a lot of the killer POV shots and that kind of a thing, and that makes me dizzy. It works sometimes. Halloween is a great example of the POV shot from the killer's point of view working really well, but they do it in a lot of those Italian movies, and they make me really dizzy. There's a couple of forms of the exploitation genres, though, that I really don't like. Now, this is a personal taste thing. Your mileage may vary, but there's two of them that I really don't like. I don't like the Bruce exploitation films, and I don't like the Nazi exploitation films. I can't. And it's for completely different reasons on my part. The Nazi exploitation stuff I don't like simply because I think that's really distasteful. I think that it's...
If you're going to make fun of the Nazis, do it in a way that makes them look like buffoons.
Thank you.
Hogan's Heroes, one of my all-time favorite shows, and actually a favorite show of a number of survivors who said that it makes light of it, but yes... But they really were that stupid in places.
Or a film like The Producers. Either
The Producers
version,
is excellent.
You know.
Springtime for Hitler is a beautiful
hysterically
jab at that.
funny number. And it makes the Nazis look like idiots. But the Nazi exploitation films, the films like Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, a lot of them are, the whole idea that the Nazis raped a lot of their prisoners and did grotesque experiments on them and stuff like that. And I can understand some people might be like, well, we should show this to show how horrible it is so people will make sure it never happens again. Okay, you can try and hide behind that argument for these kind of movies, but no, it doesn't work for me. Because a lot of these movies make that stuff try and look erotic or titillating or stuff like that, and I'm like, no. This is not erotic or titillating. This is disgusting. This was one of the blackest, darkest chapters of human history, and it shouldn't be shown in that light.
Okay, so what about the other one?
The Bruce-exploitation films...
Which we did quite a few of during Martial Arts March this year.
Yes, The Bruce-exploitation films, for those who don't know that term, are films that came out pretty much immediately after the death of martial arts legend Bruce Lee. These were films that were made with Bruce Lee lookalikes. These were
not mostly. No, they just renamed them with names that were similar.
These were films that were made either with Bruce Lee lookalikes in the fact that they were made by Asian men under 50 that sort of looked...
It wasn't that
and
bad.
that was the end of their resemblance to Bruce Lee. It wasn't that
bad. Some of them actually did resemble him quite well.
Or they were made with actors with names like Bruce Lee, L.E., Bruce Lee, L.I., Bruce
Leah, L.E.A.
So on and so forth, etc.
Dragon Lee.
Et cetera, ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Some of them were films that purported to be the last film of Bruce Lee. Some of them were films about why Bruce Lee died. Some of them were films about the idea that Bruce Lee didn't really die.
We actually watched one for
Masochistic March.
Masochistic March called Clones of Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Which had Bruce Lee, L.E., Bruce Leah, L.E.A., and Bruce Lai, L.I., and Dragon Lee in it. Mm-hmm. All four of them. Yeah. And this movie was so unwatchable. It was hysterically funnily bad.
See, I'm
sorry. And it's like, oh my God, really?
I don't like this genre. I think it is so disrespectful to a person that was such a brilliant, not only a brilliant martial artist, he was a great actor. Bruce was a really good actor and a damn sexy man. And it's like a lot of these films, it's like the guy wasn't even cold in the ground yet before they started this stuff. And it's just so, it leaves you with such an awful taste in your mouth.
One of the subgenres that came out of the 70s and continued on into the 80s was a movie. It was actually there were 3 different spins of the subgenre. And they were movies based out of or filmed in the Philippines. The best known of those are the women in prison films, usually starring Jane Kennedy or Sybil Danning or a number of other people. And these were,
Pam Grier.
Pam Grier.
You'd find Sid Haig in there
I would say
somewhere.
Sid Haig is in almost all of them.
Yep.
And it's like, we actually will, later on in the show, we're going to repeat our review from a few years ago when Machete Maidens Unleashed was at the Boston Underground Festival. This is a film that's available for streaming that you guys need to look at if you have any interest in this, because it's brilliantly funny, and it's an insight into these particular films, these women in prison films. And it was a very popular genre.
Yeah.
And it became popular even more in the early 1980s when suddenly people could go to their local store and grab a movie on VHS and pop it into their player.
Yeah. Well, the women in prison films became popular for a number of different reasons. Partially, and whether people want to admit this or not, I think that was a backlash of the women's lib movement. You had a lot...
I think you're right about that, actually.
You had a lot of these films where you had women in situations where they're being subjugated, they're being humiliated, they're being...
We've seen some really awful films.
Yeah.
Trailers
They're being debased, and a lot of them are very attractive women. And I think a lot of the popularity of these films was the fact that A, there were attractive women, and B, the fact that you had these women in situations, well, like I said, they're subjugated, they're debased, it's very violent, it's humiliating, and men on a subconscious level who had been listening to the past, for the last decade plus about women power and women's liberation and women empowerment and all this stuff like that. This was that dirty little secret in the back of your, subconscious that whether you want to admit it or not, was there.
Another one that was really popular for a while in the 70s was the nunsploitation films. These were films that were putting nuns in bad situations, sexual or violent or something. I mean, some
usually
of them,
sexual.
Not always. And some of them, they turned out to be revenge killers and a number of other things. We actually saw a short a few years ago at the Underground called Thy Kill Be Done. Kim was livid. I was sitting there in hysterics.
Yeah.
It was a parody of those films.
Yes, it was.
And it was brilliant. And it showed just why that whole genre is so damn stupid in the first place.
The whole nunsploitation thing, I have to be honest, I don't get. I don't get it.
You didn't go to Catholic school. I think that has a lot to do with it.
I don't,
And then,
for some reason, people have this... men. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about this, and if I'm being too general, you can yell at me. Men have this idea that if you put a bunch of women together where there's no men around, women are going to have sex with each other. Why?
I don't know.
Why do you think that?
I don't know if I agree with that or not.
That's what a lot of the nunsploitation stuff is about.
I know.
Stuff going on behind convent doors, blah, 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 blah.
I think the last one we should throw in here really quick, because there's so many different ones we can't get to it, are the revenge films.
Right.
There were both male and female. The male ones were usually led by Charles Bronson.
Right. And there's an enormous difference between them, and I'll get to that when you get there.
What do you mean?
The revenge films...
What triggered them was different.
Yes.
Yeah.
The revenge films fall... Actually, you can break it down even further. You have the revenge film and you have the rape and revenge film.
Right.
The revenge films...
Usually were women.
Yes. The revenge film where usually the male lead, usually played by Charles Bronson, like you mentioned, or Chuck Connors or somebody like that, or Chuck Norris. Usually it's like, their wife gets raped and murdered, or somebody close to them gets hurt, and then they go off and shoot a ton of people. The rape revenge films, things like I Spit on Your Grave and things like that, you had a woman in a situation where she's brutalized, and then she hunts down the men that brutalized her and usually shoots them.
I've forgotten the name of the young lady that starred in several of them in the early 80s. The French girl that passed away earlier this year that was the star of Miss 45.
Yeah.
And Ms. 45.
Yeah.
And
Where she shoots people dressed as a nun
Yeah.
in a nun's habit. I'm
Right.
like, what the?
Yeah, they're all over the road. There's so many different types of exploitation films, and I'll have a link to the Wikipedia article on it that gives you links to tons of different exploitation type stuff.
Yeah, and websites.
If you want to check them out, and websites. And we also have a great other website that I'll have links to in our show notes that are about that. When we come back, we're going to go back in time to a couple of past subject cinemas and pull up a couple of reviews. One of them from the Boston Underground Film Festival 2011, I believe it was. The other from Something Weird Video. And they'll be coming up probably back to back and in the next couple of segments right here as we continue with Drive-In Summer.
Don't go away, Subject Cinema. We'll be right back.
Subject Cinema. Drive-In Summer. Want to know what new films are coming out this weekend? Hi, I'm TC Kirkham of Subject Cinema, inviting you to check out 3 Minute Weekend, our weekly roundup of all the new films hitting U.S. theaters each weekend. We've got the 411 on all the new blockbusters, indies, and video on-demand choices for you each week. 3 Minute Weekend, every Friday morning from Subject Cinema and eCinemaOne.com, a PNRNetworks podcast powered by Libsyn. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast service. Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer is co-presented by Going Attractions, the definitive story of the American drive-in, from director April Wright. You can check it out right now on Amazon Prime or order the DVD at goingattractions.com.
Going Attractions, the definitive story of the American drive-in movie. A new documentary available now on DVD. The collector's edition is loaded with special features. You can get Going Attractions in your snack bar now.
Don't forget to subscribe to Subject Cinema on iTunes. Click on the iTunes link on our sidebar or search for Subject Cinema on iTunes. Once you're there, click subscribe. It's that easy. And don't forget to leave us a comment on our iTunes page and tell everyone what you think of Subject Cinema too.
Subject Cinema. Drive-In Summer.
Is the next step the transplantation of the human brain?
The giant locusts have reached the Chicago South Side and nearby suburbs.
Flag on the moon. How did it get there? That bird is extraterrestrial.
Now that's ridiculous, Eulabelle.
Jerry just tried to kill me twice in the last 5 minutes.
Because all you of Earth are idiots. There are eyewitness accounts which state that monster scorpions have swarmed around the wreckage.
Movies.
This is the story of Jade Cochran, a country girl who knew there had to be something better than waiting tables in a greasy roadside stand.
Give me my check, Jade.
She didn't know what or where it was, but she was going to get it. Even if she had to lie, cheat, beg, or steal for it, she was going to get it. For Jade Cochran. When the carnival came to town and left, Jade left with it. From that day on, something evil hauntingly clouded the trail of the gypsy caravan. Filmed on location on one of America's largest traveling carnivals.
This was a movie that we watched on Something Weird Video a few years ago. And it's now showing up on Turner Classic Movies every now and then. For what reason, I do not know. But it definitely fits Attack of the Bee movies. Give us the rundown on 1967's She Freak.
Okay.
Notice I said freak this time and not freaks. She's been correcting me all week because I've been saying freaks.
Directed by Byron Mabe and an uncredited Don Davison.
I would have wanted to say uncredited if I were Don Davidson.
She Freak tells the story of Jade Cochran, a young woman who wants something more out of life, and she's not getting it at the diner that she's working at as a waitress. She decides that she's going to leave the diner and go and try her luck at working for a carnival. And she winds up...
Oh, yeah, I can see how that's going to be better.
Well, it's the whole run off and join the circus thing.
Oh, right, okay.
And it's the whole anything's better than here thing. So, anyway, Jade runs off and joins the carnival and winds up befriending a person that's part of the carnival, a lady named Moon, who works as a dancer in the carnival. This is back in the 60s when they had dancers as part of carnivals. We've seen this in other movies, and I don't remember this at all.
I don't either. I think Hollywood's perception of carnivals is way different than real people.
Yeah.
Anyway.
She winds up becoming a member of the troupe, although she doesn't really fit in terribly well because she's got a bit of an attitude. And she winds up having her...
a bit of an attitude. A bit of an attitude?
Yeah, that's like
she's
saying...
a bitch.
That's like saying water is a bit wet. She strikes up a relationship with Blackie, who is the person that runs the Ferris wheel. We see a lot of stuff of people putting things up and down, and, putting the carnival together in this film. Actually, we see too damn much of it because I'm like, I don't see how any of this is, moving the plot along, but whatever.
Right.
The thing is, while she's, occasionally getting to know Blackie better in the biblical sense, she wants to, get her hands on a little more money. So she winds up trying to catch the eye of Steve St. John, who is the person that owns the Freak Show, which is part of the carnival, because it's the 60s and they had stuff like that. I think now they prefer to call them oddities, which,
I don't know.
I don't know. The thing is, there's a slight wrinkle with this in the fact that Jade, that said attitude that I had, it really comes about when it comes to people who are part of the Freak Show. She has a real bug up her butt when it comes to people who are just trying to make a living, dealing with what nature has given them.
Not given them.
And she winds up courting Mr. St. John, and stuff rapidly goes downhill from there because once the other members of the Freak Show find out what's going on and there is a death involved and the freaks decide they're going to gain vengeance on Jade, stuff gets pretty... Oh, I'm going to do it. Freaky. There, I did it. I'm not sorry. Actually, I am sorry. That was terrible.
With Claire Brennan as Jade, Lee Raymond as Blackie, Lynn Courtney as Moon, Bill McKinney as Steve St. John, Claude Smith as Greasy, and Felix Silla, later known as Tweaky on Buck Rogers as Shorty, plus a number of other people. This movie was terrible. I'm sorry. You wanted to watch this, and it was terrible.
I wanted to see it simply because I'm a masochist, and also because for anyone who listened to the plot that I just mentioned and goes, gosh, that sounds kind of familiar, give yourself a cookie. This is a color 60s tinted remake of the Todd Browning classic Freaks, which is an infinitely better movie. She-Freak is unpleasant. It is skeevy. It is incredibly uncomfortable. You can see the ending coming 9 kabillion light years away.
You can see the ending coming right from the opening credits.
You can actually see the ending coming from the frickin' cover. It's terrible.
It's terrible.
It is, when you look at a film like Todd Browning's Freaks, which is looking at people who have, had been dealt... No, I don't want to say...
It's entirely more sympathetic than this film was, though.
Yeah. Although this film definitely does make you root for the people that normal society calls freaks. And I definitely don't like the whole, society, nature dealt them a hard blow or something like that. I don't like that stuff. I think that's crap. These people are dealing with what they're dealing with life as best as they can, which is what we're all doing, really. Mm-hmm. It's just the fact that some of them are doing it without an arm or without 2 legs or, with whatever they've got,
right.
And that's more power to them, just like everybody else. It's just nasty. This, and it's not because it's especially gross, because it isn't. So it's not going to. It's not really.
No, there really isn't any kind of.
There's
weird
one
gore
rather
or anything
bloody.
in it.
There's one bloody scene, and there's the end. Trigger.
Which you don't really see.
You don't see what happens, but you do see the end result.
Yeah, you do. Okay.
And trigger warning: if you are freaked out by snakes, the ending might upset you a little bit. So there's that.
Yeah.
It's not an even terribly large or impressive snake.
No, it wasn't, because it didn't bother me.
No. Yeah, that's true, when you have this thing about snakes.
I don't have a thing about snakes. I worry about poisonous snakes.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, that's self-preservation. That's not...
But after the news that some big boa constrictor or anaconda bit some lady on the face this week because she handled it. Duh!
As TC mentioned, one of the cast members was Felix Silla, who up to that point was actually best known for not being seen. He was under all of that hair as Cousin It on the Addams Family. He would go on later to be in the robot suit as Tweaky on Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and other things in between. It's not for lack of trying on the actor's part that this is a terrible movie. It's just that they took Todd Browning's film and went...
The actors are fine. It's just the script was horrible.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's just the fact that they took Todd Browning's film and said, well, we can do it better now because it's color and it's the 60s. No and no. So, if you have to see it, if you think you can take it, if you're that much of a masochist, check it out.
She Freak does run occasionally on Turner Classic Movies. Check their schedule to see when it's available, and you can also buy it on DVD from Amazon. Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer is co-presented by Going Attractions, the definitive story of the American drive-in, from director April Wright. You can check it out right now on Amazon Prime or order the DVD at goingattractions.com.
Subject Cinema. Drive-In Summer.
eCinemaOne is your choice for great info and commentary about the world of film and entertainment. Daily trailer postings, the latest news and film reviews, commentary about the state of the industry, the weekly Subject Cinema and 3-Minute Weekend podcast, and so much more you won't believe it. New material is being posted daily, so join us each day and see what you're missing out on. Once you visit, you will always be back for more. eCinemaOne from PNRNetworks, eCinemaOne.com. Want to listen to Subject Cinema on the go? Check out Stitcher. You can access all the latest episodes right from iPhone or Android. Check it out. Click on the Stitcher logo on our sidebar or go to Stitcher.com and search for your favorite PNR Network show. Get started today.
Subject Cinema. Drive-In Summer. TC Kirkham and Kim Brown.
Deja vu. What is it, and why does it occur?
Just had that little feeling. You ever get that funny little, that kind of feeling, that vuja day? Not deja vu. This is vuja day. This is the strange feeling that somehow none of this has ever happened before.
Deja Vu Review.
Let's do something dramatic.
It'll be dramatic, all right.
American movies that were shot in the Philippines were basically low-budget drive-in movies.
The crassest, most exploitive, sexist, racist films.
This is Mark F. Stop Fitzgerald. If his camera could talk, he'd be in jail for statutory rape.
They look like they're made on another planet.
You were giving the audience what they wanted to see.
Blood, breasts, and beasts. The 3 Bs.
The girls with the biggest breasts and the most luscious thighs.
Did I do that?
The final full-length film we saw at the Boston Underground Film Festival was a documentary that we couldn't resist. It was getting really good word of mouth, and we were like, what is this going to be about? But you see everybody they talked to in it. They had Roger Corman, they had John Landis, they had a number of other people in it. And it was all about exploitation films from the 70s and 80s that were all filmed in the Philippines, which is where the title comes from. Machete Maidens Unleashed. Give us the 90-second rundown.
Machete Maidens Unleashed is about the films that were done in the 70s and 80s in the Philippines with the help of the government at the time, which was the oppressive government of...
Not at the beginning. That came in later. The Marcos government happened after they started doing the stuff there.
Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing was, after they started doing the films in the Philippines, a lot of the films had to do with, mercenaries throwing over tyrannical governments. And ironically, the tyrannical government they should have been focusing on was the one in the Philippines, because that was a tyrannical government run by Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda, who was known for her passion about shoes. They've interviewed everybody that you can possibly think of that was involved with exploitation films at that time.
And you've seen a lot of them.
You have.
If you've seen... anything to do with...
If you've seen Mystery Science Theater 3000, if you've seen any of the Something Weird trailers...
The 42nd Street Forever series that we had mentioned on Saturday's show, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
There are... a lot of them are well known. I mean, some of them, TNT Jackson is a pretty well known movie.
TNT Jackson, The Big Bird Cage, The Big Dollhouse.
Anything starring Sid Haig from the mid-70s, pretty much.
Or Pam Grier.
Or Pam Grier, or Weng Weng. Weng Weng is a 4-foot
Eric's
tall,
ears just perked up. I think he was smaller than that.
Was he? Might have been.
Yeah.
They did James Bond spoofs with him that were very popular. And
in
they played
Philippines.
them they were popular all over the world in the exploitation areas, but I guess he became quite a star. This was I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, this film is a complete delight. It's an absolute delight because you get to see all of these uber cheesy films that some of which you have seen, some of which you haven't seen, but you're probably, if you're like us, you're going to want to see them now because they just looked so unbelievably bad. It's interesting, though, to note that because they were working with the government, when they needed government soldiers, when they needed government tanks or copters or planes or things like that, they got them. They got the real thing.
Right.
They
From
weren't
the
props.
Army, who were on loan because Marcos wanted the money.
Yeah. Now, while this is interesting, and I find that fascinating myself, it also the movie does offer a little bit of uncomfortableness to it when they're talking about the fact that a lot of the people who were extras and things like that, I mean, they had no, there was no medical.
Natives. They were natives. They got $5 a day. That was more than they made in a month for the most part.
Right.
And
if they got hurt, if they got hurt or if they
people got killed.
Yeah, if they got killed, just get somebody else. I mean, so now when you look at some of these films, that makes you really uncomfortable because it does make you go, all right, this kind of gets a little bit uncomfortable now.
A lot of snakes in these movies.
A lot of snakes. A lot of cobras.
A lot of cobras.
I didn't realize cobras were indigenous to the Philippines.
I didn't either.
I was like, And that was the stuff that made me uncomfortable because it was showing snakes being grabbed very roughly and being killed and all that. And I'm going, I'm getting all upset because I'm like, dude, there's a living, breathing thing, man. Don't do that.
There was no animals were harmed.
No animals were harmed. Blah, 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 my butt. It's like, never mind the animals, the actors had to worry too.
Yeah, no kidding.
If you are a fan of exploitation films, and we are,
a lot of them were distributed by Roger Corman, which he has a very large part in this, talking about how all of them came about and stuff.
Mm-hmm. If you're a fan of exploitation films, and who isn't really,
they're guilty pleasures
they're
for
guilty,
most people.
They're guilty pleasures for most people, not us.
Yeah, they're guilty pleasures for us, too.
Well, yeah, but
I wouldn't admit that I watched these in, say, a Clotrudis meeting.
I would.
Yeah.
But that's just me, because I have no shame. I loved this film. I thought it was great, and I learned a lot. I mean,
did too.
See, that's the thing about documentaries that really means something to me. If I come out of a documentary going, wow, I didn't know that, then to me that it served its purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed the heck out of Machete Maiden. Now you got me doing it. Machete Maidens Unleashed. It's hard to say.
I was calling it Mavens for a while. So.
I give it an A. I give it an A.
I give it an A as well. It's definitely worth seeing, and it's already up for saving on Netflix because it'll be out later this year. So definitely check it out when it comes out. I think you'll get a big kick out of it, or perhaps a punch, or a
shot,
jab,
or a bang, or something.
Or a machete.
The best movies! Subject Cinema!
Want to know what top titles from film and TV are hitting home video this week? Hi, I'm TC Kirkham of Subject Cinema, inviting you to check out Tuesday Digidex, our weekly roundup of all the new home video releases in the U.S. each week. Whether it's DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming you're looking for, we've got it covered. Tuesday Digidex, every Tuesday morning, from Subject Cinema at eCinemaOne.com, a PNRNetworks podcast powered by Libsyn. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast service.
Na 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 Pee-wee. Holy rusted metal! It's Aunt B, too.
Hi, I'm Aunt B. Join myself and Pee-wee every week as we cover comic books, comic stuff that's happening on TV, comics in the movies.
And we'll be doing it all in our tightest tights and our capiest capes in our secret lair.
Comic Grotto, where two guys light up the bat signal. www.comicgrotto.com.
Subject Cinema! Drive-in summer!
Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer Salutes are co-presented by driveins.com, your one-stop source for all information on drive-ins around the U.S. and around the world. You can find it at drive-ins.com. Subject Cinema's Drive-In Salute this week is the 99W Drive-In Theater in Newberg, Oregon. I got their survey from this and was looking at their website, and I'm like, these are our kind of people.
Oh, yeah.
Open since 1950s and 64 years in operation with one screen and about 10 employees from late March to late November every year. They are an old school drive-in with just one screen. They only have one other theater down in the neighborhood. They're 21 miles south of, I think it says south of downtown Portland, Oregon, so you can get there from Portland easily.
Yep.
And they currently have all kinds of cool stuff. The nearest drive-ins to them in the state are in Upper Eastern Oregon that are 250 miles away. And this makes their big draw location. No other south of them until well into California. In Washington State, you have to go up 200 miles to find them. They were lucky because they were accepted with the Honda project, which we talked about a couple years ago.
Yes,
Honda had come in with a drive-in project where they were helping drive-ins find the funds to go digital, and they're one of the ones that did go digital. They don't currently do any off-hours activities, although they do tell me that operating more nights, they're usually open Thursday through Sunday, might be a good idea. They offer the usual stuff at the concession stand, including big hot dogs, great nachos, chili dillies, and it's hard to keep up with their popcorn sales, they said. They do have branded merchandise, but it is available only in person at the concession stand. And they tell people, come early in high season. We open several hours before showtime, which is a half hour after dusk. If you've got a birthday, put the name and years on the birthday beep sheet prior to showtime. Car clubs can contact them through their website to set up an event, which they do have some coming up later this summer. I knew they were one of us when I went to their website and started looking through their FAQ.
Yes.
And I'm not sure who wrote the FAQ, whether it was actually manager Brian Francis or somebody on his team. But this FAQ is fall down funny, guys. I'm serious. There's all kinds of serious questions here.
The FAQ definitely takes our way of thinking where ask a smart-ass question, get a smart-ass answer.
Right. They have the honest answers here that, like, what can we bring? What do you do? Can you bring outside food? And are you conveniently located from downtown Portland? It's like we're 21 miles away. But then you go further down the page and you get stuff like, are you conveniently located from the Las Vegas Strip? And the answer is yes, we're just 989 miles from the famous Bellagio fountains. That's a hell of a drive for a drive-in. I especially love the ones they're talking about parking spaces. And the question has arisen, I'm a being from another planet and my flying saucer is too large for a designated parking spot. Can I just park on the snack bar roof? No, but you can hover above it as long as you can pull that off silently and it does not disturb other patrons.
I like the elephant question.
Yeah, we'll get to that. They're conveniently located 996 miles from Disneyland. It's right up I-5.
It's probably cheaper too.
They also have a great exchange about the fact that Oregon is now a recreational marijuana legal state, and it's quite funny. I'm not going to go into it here. And I do like the bit about I admit, can I bring my dog, cat, ferret, elephant, etc.? Yes, as long as the animal is harmless to the customers in our operation. You must keep your animal secured to your vehicle parking space. Elephants and larger animals will be charged a single-occupant car admission due to the fact that they would take up a car space by themselves. Note to elephants and giraffes, our ticket window height clearance is 8 feet.
So technically, doesn't that mean someone could bring a baby elephant? I want to see somebody ride into their driving on a baby elephant now.
If the drive-in were surrounded by a moat, would it be full of dragons? Probably.
I protest.
Do you remember 8-tracks? They were awesome. No, they weren't.
No, hold on. No, I protest vigorously. I protest.
And I have to say this is probably a local thing. Are you conveniently located from Burns? Nothing is convenient from Burns. You could die of boredom on that drive. I'm assuming that's a Circle Pines thing, like the Misty.
I guess.
I don't know, but guys, Brian Francis and his team at the 99W Drive-In, you guys are our kind of people.
Yes.
And we love it, and this is why you are the subject of this week's Subject Cinema Drive-In Salute. Salute!
Subject Cinema Drive-In Summer.
There was never a rivalry like theirs. For over half a century, they hated each other, and we loved them for it. They only ever made one film together. Whatever happened to Baby Jane?
I'll get you the perfect co-star.
What do you have in mind? Betty, I promise you this is going to be the greatest horror movie ever made.
Why this picture?
We feel like Crawford and Davis may be a little long in the tooth. Why don't we go just a little bit younger?
You want me to work with her again? Are you crazy? Never! Never again!
Introducing a brand new feature on Subject Cinema we'll have on occasionally. And be thankful that we can't do this for shows like Law & Order, because then she'd be here for 18 hours talking about it, because she does. But we have a brand new show segment called The Ken Binge.
Yeah.
And you binged the critically acclaimed FX series Feud this last week.
Obviously Feud came out earlier this year, but, things that happened that I didn't get a chance to watch it. And it's summertime, and what better way to hang out when it's too hot to go outside than hang out in your nice, cool living room with a nice frosty beverage and chill and watch some, TV.
And we had recorded it because we wanted to see it, and I didn't get a chance to do it, but she did, so.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it, please.
Feud is... Feud, Betty and Joan is actually the full title, since it's going to be a continuing series.
Yeah, it is.
Feud, Betty and Joan looks at what happened before, during, and after the making of 1962's Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which, ironically, is considered the kickoff of another exploitation. What is Hagsploitation, which I don't like the title of simply because I think it's disrespectful and mean.
I always called those Psycho Biddy movies.
Yeah,
so
me too.
It's
Which
much
is
better title.
Kind of better?
A little better.
A little? Take what you can get, folks. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, obviously a seminal, terrific thriller, directed by Robert Aldrich, brought together Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Now, when people your age and my age hear the name Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, we think, movie star, somebody that was well-respected.
Classic movie star.
Yeah, classic movie star, well-respected, the whole 9 yards.
Generation from after us, the Generation X people and the Generation Y people, remember Joan Crawford from Crap Like Trog and from Mommy Dearest.
Yeah.
And Bette Davis from Bette Davis Eyes, having nothing to do with that song at all.
Right.
So,
although she did like it.
She did like it. It made her hit with her grandkids.
Yeah.
That's why she liked it. Yeah.
But you have to understand something that I did. I learned a lot from Feud. The one thing I really learned that blew my mind was at the time when Whatever Happened to Baby Jane came about, both of these women were pretty much considered has-beens and forgotten and shunted aside by Hollywood by that point. And I was sitting there like, what the what?
Well, this is the mogul system at work at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jack Warner and his ilk.
Right. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane was the film that was actually found, according to Feud, by Joan Crawford. It's based on a novel. She found it. She wanted to do it. She wanted Bette Davis to be in it, even though they really didn't like each other very well. They had fought for parts, the same parts. They had, they had problems with the fact that they had dated some of the same men. The thing is, they didn't like each other before Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. During Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, they didn't like each other. That phrase got cranked up to 11 and then cranked up 100 dials more. After Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, it would be pretty clear to say they hated each other. The problem is that they were very similar women. That's why they didn't get along. They were both single mothers. They had both been cast aside as being too old and too this and too that by the studios that had used them in their youth and didn't want them anymore. If they had been able to put aside that junk, they probably would have been an unstoppable force, but there was just too much trying to pull them apart. The studios, the gossip columns, the studios wanted them to hate each other. And that was incredibly clear by the fact that Whatever Happened to Baby Jane was a huge success, which surprised everybody, including the stars. And because of the success of it, they wanted to make another film with these two women. Because by now, it was common knowledge they couldn't stand each other. And thus came about Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte.
Which Joan did not do.
Which Joan did start.
Did she?
She did. I know some people out there are going, wait a minute, Kim, that wasn't Joan Crawford, that was Olivia de Havilland.
Right, yeah.
Yes, it was. Eventually.
I've actually seen Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte
Eventually, it was Olivia de Havilland. At the beginning of it, it was Joan Crawford. But stuff got so bad that Joan got sick and was eventually taken out of the film. They said, fine, F it, screw it, we're done with her, bring somebody else in. Feud looks at all of this stuff and beyond with an incredible cast. The cast included Susan Sarandon as Bette Davis, Jessica Lange as Joan Crawford, Alfred Molina as Robert Aldrich, Stanley Tucci as Jack Warner, and people in smaller roles, people like
Kathy Bates, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Kathy Bates as Joan Blundell. Catherine Zeta-Jones as Olivia de Havilland, which I was kind of
Why are you stumbling over her name?
No, I was
You are really stumbling over Olivia de Havilland.
When I saw Catherine Zeta-Jones as Olivia de Havilland, I'm like, what?
That's weird casting.
I was like doing
That's
that
very
head,
strange casting.
I was doing that head tilt, dog hearing a strange sound thing. I was like, but it was really, she did a terrific job. It was such an amazing thing to watch feud. They did such an incredible job on this. It really was, in a lot of ways, kind of like watching a plane crash in slow motion. I realize that sounds horrible.
No, it doesn't.
You know,
that's what the show is designed to do.
But, you know, it really was, though. It was like watching a plane crash in slow motion. You know something horrible is happening, and it's going to cause a shite ton of collateral damage, but you can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, a lot of it, I wound up feeling sad. I wound up feeling really, really sad for both women.
Mm-hmm.
Betty Davis is one of my all-time favorite actresses in the history of ever. I thought she was just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Joan Crawford
is Joan Crawford.
Yeah. Wow. If this one, you know, for those of us who remember Mommy Dearest and have seen Mommy Dearest,
you poor things. The book is much better than the movie. The movie is terrible.
For those of you who walked out of Mommy Dearest thinking this bitch was effed up, you know, this movie multiplies that, but actually makes you feel sorry for her. Toward the end, I was like, yeah, this woman really needed help. You know, this woman really... If she had gone into therapy, who knows what kind of turnaround she could have made with her life. Because this woman was deeply, deeply damaged by her past.
Therapy wasn't a popular option in the 50s and 60s.
No.
It really came into its vogue in the psychedelic era in the late 60s and then took on.
You know, she was so deeply damaged by her past. I don't think anybody could have come out of her childhood and not wound up a little bit dinged in the belfry, but you know, her bats were like the size of Rodin. They were that big in her belfry. Feud is a lot of entertainment. It's a lot of fun. Definitely check it out when you get a chance. From what I've heard, the next feud is going to be Feud Charles and Diana.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've heard.
I wasn't sure what the new one was going to be, but I was going to say Feud by Ryan Murphy, the creator of American Horror Story and American Crime Story. Airs every year on FX, and next one will Charles and Diana.
As of right now, the rumors are it's going to be Charles and Diana. And if that's
I thought they announced what it was going to be this week's things in the TCAs in New York, but I don't think that was it. I'll have to look it up.
I'm not sure.
But anyway, so will you like it? Do you recommend it?
I would definitely recommend it. It's really something entertaining and great for a binge watch.
It's not available right now on demand, but it will be because it's nominated for something like 8 Emmys, including both lead actresses. So I would expect that FX Now will probably have it on their on demand sometime in the next 6 weeks.
Subject Cinema Drive-In Summer.
Subject Cinema's Drive-In Summer is co-presented by Going Attractions, the definitive story of the American drive-in, from director April Wright. You can check it out right now on Amazon Prime or order the DVD at goingattractions.com. Now you can bring all your favorite PNR Network shows to your television. Check out PNR Networks on Roku. It's all of what PNR Networks has to offer, all in one place. The entire PNR Networks podcast family. Subject Cinema, Subject Cinema Reviews, Platinum Rose's Garden, Mirrorball Mayhem, 3-Minute Weekend, Cavebabble, and Mashed Up Madness. Plus the latest videos from PNR Networks and Larry 411. All right at your fingertips. And even more is on the horizon. It's literally thousands of hours, a decade worth of great audio and video, all under one roof. And best of all, it's all free. The PNR Network's Roku channel. Simply go to the On Roku area of any of our websites or click on the Roku button on the sidebar to subscribe. And don't forget to tell all your Roku-owning friends we're here as well.
eCinemaBoston is your best choice for all the latest news and info about happenings in the world of film here in the hub of the universe. local theater listings, ticketing info, reviews of local venues, spotlight on Boston actors, the latest film shoots, and a whole lot more. If you're in the Metro Boston area, you need eCinemaBoston from PNRNetworks. Once you visit, you will always be back for more. eCinemaBoston.com.
Subject Cinema.
Drive me a summer.
T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown.
For those of you who are new to our show, Drive-In Cinema this summer, we often do what segment we call Take a Bow, and we were going to try and save it for the whole summer to do it at the end of the thing, but we've got so many passings this last couple of weeks that we wanted to bring up some rather important ones because they are it's a shame to think about them not being around anymore. The most shocking of them, Linkin Park lead singer Chester Bennington committed suicide about 2 weeks ago. He was 42.
I believe so.
He was revered in the music industry for being not only one of the nicest guys on the planet, but for also creating such a great sound for a band that ended up becoming one of the biggest bands of the 2000s, and their socially conscious lyrics became very popular with the crowd that listens to that stuff.
Yeah.
He went through this horrible ordeal with his wife, then wife, I don't know if that was his widow or not, that where they were stalked for 2 years by this crazy woman. They went into this whole thing of that in an issue of Rolling Stone a few years ago.
It was
insane.
It was really something like if you didn't know that this happened to a person and you thought it was a movie, you'd be like, no, this is too unbelievable. He was 41.
41.
He's survived by his wife, Talinda, and 6 children.
Wow. He will definitely be missed, and there have been massive tributes to the guy everywhere.
Yeah, it's
you
very
will
sad.
see him at some point in the near future. Just 3 days before his suicide, he shot a carpool karaoke with James Corden.
Yeah.
And James, the family has asked James to go ahead and air it in the near future. So we will see what happens.
It's very, very sad. He actually also did a little acting. He appeared in both of the Jason Statham action films, The Crank and Crank High Voltage.
Oh, the poor guy. Where did he get stuck in those films?
He was in Saw 3D and a film called Artifact, and he will definitely be missed by his friends and family and fans.
Legendary voiceover artist June Foray passed away this past week. She was 99 years old.
Yep.
June Foray is part of everybody's childhood,
Definitely.
regardless of whether you realize it or not. She is responsible, best known, without a doubt, for Rocky the Flying Squirrel from the Rocky and Bullwinkle series, and as Witch Hazel in the last half of the Warner shorts. B. Benaderet did it on the first two.
She was the voice of. She was basically the voice of
Granny.
Most of the Warner Brothers female characters
after 1950. She wasn't before that, but she was like, and of course she did countless voices for all kinds of things. She was a TV actress as well. She actually made her most recent appearance on a TV show not more than 2 years ago, I think. She continued, she was one of the founders of the Annie Awards, the awards given every year for animation, and is actually one of the awards is named after her, the June Foray Lifetime Achievement Award.
Yep.
She would have been 100 in September. I feel so bad that she didn't quite make it.
Yeah.
Because she was just amazing.
We saw her most recently in the 2013 documentary "I Know That Voice," and the last.
Did we see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was involved with the short that was with Rocky, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, the Rocky and Bullwinkle short that went with that, the direct-to-video one. She will definitely be missed. She was one of those people you heard her voice and you instantly recognized it, even though she could do so many different voices.
Although a lot of them did come out sounding kind of similar with just different pitches. It was great. She was a legend and always will be. Singer-songwriter Michael Johnson passed away last week also. Michael was best known for his 2 big hits in the 1970s, Bluer Than Blue and This Night Won't Last Forever. But he was a songwriter that provided hits for dozens of other artists over the years. He endlessly toured over the course of a 20 or 30 year career, and was just thought of as one of the good guys in the music industry. Actor John Hurd passed away this week. John Hurd, best known probably as the dad in Home Alone 1 and 2, but he's also been on The Sopranos and a number of other shows over the years.
He was definitely a well-respected character actor and definitely one of those, hey, it's that guy, people usually playing dads or, that kind of, that, the male authority figure kind of a character.
Yep.
And as you mentioned, he was 71.
Uh-huh. And finally, yesterday, we lost another member of the Match Game family. If you're a fan of the Match Game, the original show, which runs on reruns, I think it's still on Game Show Network, and it's also on Buzzer, the syndicated network. Patty Deutsch passed away. Patty was 72. She'd been dealing with cancer for a number of years. Patty started her career, got best known for Laugh-In. She was one of the regulars on Laugh-In during its final couple of seasons. And she eventually crossed over. She had started as a comedy writer as well as a comedian, and she crossed over and became one of the rotating group of 5 or 6 women that held that right spot on the bottom left if you're sitting there, bottom right if you're watching the TV, next to Richard Dawson and right below Charles Nelson Riley.
Yes.
And she shared that seat with Marshall Wallace and Joey Spulafont and
Betty
a number
White.
of other people, Betty White and a number of other people. Patty always had this wonderfully droll sense of humor, and some really strange answers came out of that woman. Not as strange as Joyce Spulafont, I gotta say.
She was very good with the dry, deadpan kind of humor.
She was awesome with that stuff. She was great.
And that's not easy to pull off.
It's fun because now, with Match Game back on the air and a hit all over again, with Alec Baldwin hosting it on ABC in like 8 or 10 week segments, I'm grateful to know that the original Match Game, well, it's actually the second Match Game, the original one's from the 60s, the 70s version of the Match Game is back on the air, and you can see it, every day, 8 times a day on Buzzer, and I think it's still on Game Show Network too, and it's like, it's a kick watching all these old shows. They never go out of style. The questions are still hilariously funny, and she's one of the reasons why. Patty Deutsch will be sorely missed, as will Chester and June and Michael and John, and we wish all the best to their families and friends, and ask them to take a final bow with us.
Yes.
For those of you who are visiting our websites for the first time this summer, and those of you who have been around for a while, on our Subject Cinema website right now with our great drive-in summer stuff, you go down the page a little bit, there's this great big orange button that says Patreon on it. Patreon is a crowdfunding group that helps podcasters and artists get funding from their listeners and their supporters and fans so that they can do more. We started a Patreon campaign in November of 2016. And unfortunately, despite the fact that we get tons of listens every week, we haven't been able to convince anybody that they need to part with a couple of bucks a month for us. The reason I'm coming to you now with this is because we have so many things that we like to do and we want to try to do. And we've said, if you've not been over to see our Patreon campaign video, which you have to endure me, Jabba the Hutt, talking about things, it explains exactly why we've come to you. We do a lot of work every week for these shows. We do a lot of work and research. We also output a lot of our hard-earned money into perks and stuff for the site. Now, we were hoping to be able to do much more. We're trying to expand PNRNetworks that include Subject Cinema and all of our websites, plus all of our podcasts, benefiting Subject Cinema, Platinum Rose's Garden, Cavebabble, Comic Grotto now, and other shows that we do. And it gets to be kind of discouraging when you don't really know if your fans are out there because they don't write to you. You can see the numbers are there, and we hope you're listening. We'd love to hear from you, subjectcinema@pnrnetworks.com. And we'd love to hear what you have to say, or you can drop a line on Facebook or Twitter or wherever. But it's important because we'd hope to expand our film festival coverage. We'd hope to do a couple of new video projects that we can't get off the ground without your help. And we hope that you will sit back and take a listen and take a look in your heart and say, you know, I might not be the perfect person and I might have it hard and rough sometimes, but I can afford $2 a month because I enjoy listening to their show.
Yeah.
And that's all we're asking. We're not asking to be miracles, although I'd like to get enough patrons so we can actually work on this full time. We both work full-time jobs, and not very many podcasters do that in addition to what they're doing. They're able to concentrate on their podcast full-time. People like Hank Green can do this full-time. I can't. I'd like to be able to. And if we get enough people doing Patreon, I could. But the more we can get in from Patreon, the better the shows are going to get. We'll be able to develop more ideas, develop new programming, new sites, new features on the sites. And we really would appreciate it if you could do that. We have levels going up to $100 and all kinds of perks with them, each one. And I'm going to go in and revise the perks a little bit, but $2 a month will get you on our Patreon sponsors list. And that's something where you can say, see, I'm helping these people. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to change that so that it says that on our Patreon site. I haven't done it yet. But it's like, because it was only for $10 and up, but we're going to do it for everybody, because that's only fair. You can help us out in other ways, too. Spread the word about Subject Cinema. Tell people, I found this great, funny show about film, and it's not these stupid procasters. It's these two film fans that have taken this seriously and have fun with it.
It's not people with an agenda. Nobody's trying to push any ideas. It's just two people having fun, trying not to be serious for the most part.
Well, we can be serious on some. We have some very serious shows in the past.
Yeah. You know, we're serious when we have to be. When we don't have to be, we won't be.
What else you can do? You can subscribe to our newsletter. Mm-hmm. Make sure you subscribe to the show on one of the services that you listen to. And you can email us. Let us know you're there, or you can leave us a voicemail. And there's links on the site. You can write us at subjectcinema@PNRNetworks.com. There's a great new voicemail thing that we have up on the website where you can just click it and record right from your phone through SpeakPipe. And you can follow us and retweet us on Twitter. Kim is Platinum Rose Lady, or no, Platinum Rose L.
Platinum Rose L or Platinum Rose Lady. You can find me either way.
Well, no,
on Twitter, it's Platinum Rose Lady.
It is Platinum Rose Lady on Twitter. Platinum Rose Lady, or eCinemaBoston is usually where I am, but I'm also under eCinemaOne. And our Facebook site, where you can come over, like us on Facebook at PNRNetworks, or at my personal site, TC Kirkham. Kim is there too, but she doesn't really go over there that much.
Nope.
Facebook annoys her. I don't blame her. What we're basically asking is you to help us spread the word and help us spread stuff when we're talking about it.
If you're looking for my link on Twitter, you can find me Platinum Rose L Twitter.
That's what I thought. You are Platinum Rose L, not Platinum Rose Lady. Okay, so anyway, we hope that you'll donate. We definitely hope that you'll spread the word, and we'll hope that you'll write to us and say, I like your show. Mm-hmm. We're here because we love movies, and you're listening because you love movies too, and you love to hear these two lunatics talk about movies. So spread the word about the two lunatics. Pop in $2 a month. Help us grow the show, grow the audience, and we're going to be able to give you all kinds of cool stuff as we move on into the future. We hope we've been able to do it by now, but we're not, and we still need your help. So please go over and visit our Patreon site. It's at patreon.com/PNR Networks, or just click on the giant orange Patreon button on every PNR Networks website, and be glad that you did, and we thank you for it in advance.
The last reel.
The last reel this week comes from that bastion for all us geeky McNerdly nerds, and that would be Comic-Con, specifically San Diego Comic-Con, where people get to meet all of their science fiction, fantasy, horror idols, and sometimes that can be really emotional, especially if you're, a little younger. A little girl was meeting Gal Gadot after the Gadot.
We'll get it right.
At the Justice League panel. Little girl named Ashley, and she was so excited that she was able to meet Wonder Woman and the other members of the Justice League. Who she was dressed
as, by the way.
Yes, she was dressed as Wonder Woman. She got a little emotional and she started to cry. And Gal noticed that, and she wanted to make her feel better. And she said to the little girl, quote, "There's no reason to cry, all right. Here we are together," end quote. Which is just the most adorablest thing ever. And then, just to make it even more adorable, Gal's co-star from Justice League, Ezra Miller, who is one of our most favorite people in the history of ever, decided to
Both
chime
actors and personalities.
decided to chime in, and he said to the little girl, quote, "You're a warrior. Your ability to cry is what makes you such a warrior. Come join the Justice League whenever you get ready," end quote. Sorry, I can squeak higher than that, but I don't want to break the windows.
Or the microphones.
I just think that is the sweetest thing in the world. Also at Comic-Con, there was a little boy that was caught on camera. I shouldn't say caught, but he was seen on camera.
He was caught by the camera.
Caught by the camera. So excited to meet Ben Affleck, from Batman from the Justice League, that he had tears in his eyes. And I gotta say, that kind of enthusiasm, none of us should lose that.
Gives us hope for the future.
None of us should lose that, ever. You should always have that kind of enthusiasm and passion for something in life, because it's what makes life worth living. And
if we could give an award for passion about that stuff, we would give it to Todd Drummond. There's been pictures of Todd Drummond, who is the Chef Reed Drummond's son. He's a big cosplay person.
Mm-hmm.
He goes in, he's 12 or 13 now. He spent his Christmas money on a full decked out Captain America outfit. It looks fantastic in it.
Awesome. So we wanted to say to Gal and to Ezra, you are just awesome people and total superheroes. And Ashley, we're going to be looking for you in the Justice League in a couple of years, girl. So you don't let us down.
Or at least hosting a podcast about the Justice League.
Yeah.
And that's the last reel.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're coming up on the final month of Drive-In Summer. It's here we are at the end of July, and we hope you've loved our show about exploitation films. We have a lot more stuff to do in the weeks ahead, but we only have 5 more of these shows.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, it's going so fast. It's because we got sick and missed a couple, but it's like we have so much fun doing these. Please write to us and let us know what you think. We would love to hear your drive-in stories, about your local drive-ins, everything about it.
Yeah.
Please do it so we can bring it up on the show, subjectcinema@PNRNetworks.com. And don't forget to check out all of our other shows in our family of shows. Platinum Rose's Garden from from Cam over here.
Yeah, from me. Platinum
Which is in its summer hiatus, but you can go back and hear 8 seasons worth of shows.
Yeah, you can go back and listen to my waxing poetic on Sam and Dean Winchester and all things supernatural, if you are so inclined. Okay.
You sit there and sigh all the time.
I might be a little obsessed with those guys. I might be.
A little?
That's like
a little. That's like saying water is wet. She's a little obsessed.
I might be a little oversexed.
PlatinumRosesGarden.com. Also, don't forget Cavebabble with Eric and Valerie Lyon. All kinds of cool stuff. Movies, TVs, games. Cavebabble eats odd things and a lot more at Cavebabble.com. And Comic Grotto with Aunt B, and Pee-wee.
Yep.
Our newest show. They've actually had to bring down stuff because of a couple things going on in Anthony's life, but they are continuing to do shows about comics and comics that appear in TV and the movies, and we hope you'll check them out at comicgrotto.com. Also check out our mini shows, 3-Minute Weekend on Friday and Tuesday, Digidex on Tuesday, running down what's coming to the theaters on Friday and home video on Tuesday. Catastrophe Vortex, I will get back into this month. I've been trying. It's hard with my schedule, but we will get it back up. I do have the next show all lined up. I just got to find time to record it. And The Real Recipe from Subject Cinema, a 4-week miniseries about food films and foodies in films, coming up in August. Please stay tuned. It will be available in about 2 weeks. We hope you've enjoyed Drive-In Summer. We hope you'll have a lot of fun at the Drive-In this weekend. There's all kinds of great stuff out. Although, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I mean, this is going to date this show, but I keep hearing terrible things about the Emoji Movie. I would not want to go to see this. No. But if it's got a Despicable Me or something good with it, at least you'll get half a good film.
Yeah.
See Valerian while you can. That was awesome. And on that note... For Subject Cinema, I'm TC Kirkham.
I'm Kim Brown.
May your popcorn always be butter.
And may your roses always be in bloom.
We'll see you at the drive-in.
Bye now.
You have been listening to Subject Cinema with hosts T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown. Subject Cinema is produced by PNRNetworks, Boston, Massachusetts, which is solely responsible for its content. Subject Cinema is recorded and produced using Sony Vegas products. Subject Cinema is copyright 2017 by PNRNetworks under a Creative Commons license. Check out a new episode of Subject Cinema every weekend. Until next time, this is Bob Taylor for Subject Cinema, and we'll see you at the movies.
That's all.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNR.